Okay, so today we will discuss the flow control flow control mechanism. So the flow control mechanism is associated with the data link layer. Now the flow control mechanism has a direct relationship with a teaching learning process. So by which, suppose there is a teacher and there is a student who are interacting with each other for some learning purpose. Now the teacher delivers the content or the study material to the student at a certain speed. Okay, now the teacher teaches the student at a certain speed or delivers the lecture at a certain speed. Now teacher obviously know better than the student, so if the teacher delivers the content, his or her content, to the student at a very high speed, then the student cannot grasp that, because the student knowledge is limited that topic with respect to the student, provided that the student is understanding that topic for the first time. Now if the teacher deliver at a very fast rate, now the student cannot grasp it, so some of the content might be dropped or some of the content student cannot understand fully. Now this mechanism is completely related with the flow control mechanism. Now the teacher and the student learning process is exactly equal to the in the computer network flow control mechanism. Now in this lecture, so this is a brief introduction about the flow control mechanism. Now in this lecture we will try to recall the data link layer services. Okay, so we will try to recall the link services. Okay, then we will try to understand the flow control. What do you mean by the flow control, and what is the need of flow control, what are the different type of protocols for the flow control, and next know the flow control protocols. So next is your flow control protocols. Know the flow control protocols. Now in the data link layer, okay, so first is your link layer services. This is the link layer services. Now in the link layer services, we know that there is a OSI model. In the OSI model, in the 7th layer, consisting of application layer, presentation layer, session layer, transport layer, network layer, then upon beneath that data link layer and the physical layer. So this is your data link layer. So we are discussing this data link layer. Now this data link layer is responsible for moving the data or the frames. The data is actually transferred in form of frames. Okay, so it is responsible for moving the data or the frames from one node to the another node. So one node to another node. So this is your sender node and this is your receiver node. So data link layer is responsible for moving the data. Data is transferred in the form of frames. Okay, and it is transferred from one node to the another node, responsible for. Okay, now services provided by the data link layer. So what are the different services provided by the data link layer? So data link layer provides different services. First service is framing. So framing means data is converted to a certain frame, and that frame is going to transfer from one node to the another node. So first one is your framing. Second one is your error control. Now in the error control, this is a very vital part of the data link layer, and we have also discussed some of the mechanism of the error control, or the error rather than not error control, it is error detection. So error control is not only error detection, it is also correction, but we have not still discussed the error correction mechanism. We will discuss the error correction mechanism, that is the Hamming code, so in the later section. So third service provided by the data link layer is the flow control. That is the topic of interest of this day. Okay, so that is the flow control mechanism, that is the data link layer provided these services also. Next service is provided the physical addressing. It is also provide the physical addressing. And the last service provided by is access control. The last service provided by is access control. Okay, so these are the different type of services provided by the data link layer. So first one is your framing, second one is your error control. So the error control, I have discussed error control. the error detection procedure. What are the different type of error detection procedure whenever the data is being transformed from one node to the another node. And next one is your flow control, and fourth one is your physical addressing, and last one is your access control. So these are the different type of services provided by the data link layer. Now there is a, suppose there is a computer, a node may be a computer. So this is a computer A, and there is maybe the intermediate node between that. If there is a connection, there is another computer here. So this is the sender computer, this is the receiver computer, and between that there is intermediate node. This is intermediate node 1, this is intermediate node 2. Okay, now likewise I have said in the teaching teacher and the student learning process, the flow control is also responsible in the same way. So if the node A is sending the data, the node A is responsible for, this is the sender node, so node A is responsible for sending the data to the receiver node. So this is the sender node, sender computer, and this is the receiver computer. Now if the sender computer sends the data at a very high speed, at a very fast rate, then what happens? The computer B has a limitation. Suppose it is performing at a very slow rate rather than the sender computer. So what happens? Some of the data packets it may be discarded. So all of the data packet may not be accepted by this receiver computer. So that is the problem arises whenever there is a no proper flow control mechanism between the sender and the receiver. So the sender and the receiver must be agreed upon a flow control mechanism so that there is a proper communication between the two nodes. Now if the sender computer sending the data at a very fast rate, then only the problem arises. Now if the receiver computer is very fast, sender computer is slow, then I think there is no problem, because receiver computer is always ready to receive the data, because sender is slow. So that we will not discuss. We will only discuss the problem that will be arises when the sender computer is sending the data at a very fast rate, but the receiver computer is very slow to receive the data at that rate. Okay, so that's why the flow control mechanism is also called the speed matching mechanism. So it is also called the speed matching mechanism. Okay, it is nothing but a speed matching mechanism. Okay, it is a speed matching mechanism because we are controlling the speed between the two devices, data rate. Okay, next one is flow control also coordinates the amount of data that can be sent before receiving an acknowledgement. Okay, so acknowledgement is a part that must be associated with the, in the error control mechanism we have considered both the sender and the receiver at the same time. We give importance both the sender and the receiver, but at the flow control mechanism we are only concerned with the receiver section. Okay, so the next function performed by this flow control mechanism is the flow control coordinates. Okay, it actually coordinates the amount of data, that means coordinates the amount of data that can be sent, coordinates the amount of data that can be sent before receiving an acknowledgement from the receiver. So before receiving an acknowledgement, okay, before receiving an acknowledgement from the receiver. So this is the second point. Okay, so next point is flow control is a set of procedure. So it is a flow control. I have said that the sender and receiver must agree upon a flow control services. So flow control is a set of procedure that tells the sender how much data it can transmit before it must wait for an acknowledgement from the receiver. Okay, so it is also a set of procedure. It is a set of procedure or rule. Okay. It is a set of procedure that tells the sender, it actually tells the sender how much data it transmit, how much data the sender must transmit before it must wait for acknowledgement, before it wait for acknowledgement. Okay, this is the third point provided by the flow control mechanism. Now the next one, receiver has a limited speed at which it can process the incoming data and the limited amount of memory in which stores the incoming data. Okay, so in the receiver computer, receiver has a limited speed. Obviously whenever receiver has a limited speed, then only this flow control mechanism comes into picture. Okay, so whenever the receiver has a limited speed, and whenever is a limited speed, that means it can process the data, limited speed of process the data, and whenever it is processing the data, it only accepts a very small amount of data, store limited data, store limited amount of data in its memory. Okay, stores limited amount of data in memory. Now what happens if the memory sender is sending the data at a very high speed? Then what happens, this whenever it is processing the data, and also sender is sending the data continuously, so what happens, this memory is full, and whenever this memory is full, the receiver cannot accept the further data from the sender side, new data from the sender side, incoming data. So then the speed mismatch actually occurs, and some amount of important data sending from the sender side is actually discarded. So that is not desirable. Okay, so that's why we need the flow control mechanism. So obviously there is different type of protocols. I have said that there is different type of protocol or procedure. So what are the different type of protocols? Okay, different type of protocols. So for there is two procedure. First one is for noiseless channel. In the case of the noiseless channel, there is some sort of procedure, and for the noisy channel there is some sort of procedure. Noisy channel, for the noiseless channel, it is the simplest protocol, and stop and wait protocol. Stop and wait protocol. For the noisy channel, it is stop and wait ARQ, stop and wait ARQ. We will discuss one by one later on. And go back in ARQ, go back in ARQ, and last one is your selective repeat ARQ. Selective repeat ARQ. So this is the procedure of the protocols. Noiseless channel, it is the simplest and the stop and wait protocol, and for the noisy channel it is stop and wait, go back ARQ, and the selective repeat ARQ. Okay, so these are the procedure we will discuss one by one. Okay. Okay, so in the protocols we have said that there are two type of channel protocols. First one is for noiseless channel, and second one is for noisy channel. For the noiseless channel, this is the simplest protocol, and the stop and wait protocol. So we will discuss the stop and wait protocol. It is a very simple protocol to discuss, so we will not concentrate on this stop and wait protocol. So stop and wait protocol, in the stop and wait protocol, first characteristics that it is data link layer protocol. For transmission of frame over noiseless channel. So this is the first characteristics of this stop and wait protocol. Okay, so it is a data link layer protocol for transmission of frames over the noiseless channel. Okay, so the second characteristics, it provides the unidirectional data transmission with flow control facilities. Okay, it provides unidirectional, it is a characteristics of this protocol. It provides unidirectional data transmission, with flow control facilities. with flow control facilities but without error control facilities, but without error control facilities. Okay. So this is the second characteristics, unidirectional data transmission with the flow control facilities but not without error control facilities. Now the third characteristics, after transmission of one frame, okay, so this is the next characteristics, that is after transmission of the one frame, sender waits for the acknowledgement before transmitting the next frame. Okay, so this is all about the some of the characteristics. Now some of the primitive of the stop and wait protocol. Okay, now the primitive is from the sender side and from the receiver side also. Okay, from the sender side the primitive is, from the sender side the primitives, there is rule number 1, there is rule number 2, and from the receiver side there is also rule number 1 and there is also rule number 2. Okay, now from the sender side, sender send one data packet at a time, send one data packet at a time, send the next packet only after receiving ACK for the previous, and send next packet only after receiving ACK for the previous. This is from the sender side primitive rule. Now the receiver side, receive or consume data packet. First one is receive and consume data packet, and second one, after consuming packet acknowledgement need to be sent. So after consuming packet acknowledgement need to be sent, acknowledgement need to be sent. Okay, so this is your flow control. So this is the two primitive from the sender side also and from the receiver side. Now the from the sender side, send one data packet at a time and send the next packet only after receiving the acknowledgement for the previous. Okay, and from the receiver side, receive and consume the data packet. Consume means process the data packet, and after consuming, okay, after consuming the packet acknowledgement need to be sent. That is the flow control mechanism. Okay, now the stop and wait protocol is nothing but, you can see this is sender side and this is your receiver side. So data packet has been sent from sender to receiver. Now this packet has been received, processed, and after that the acknowledgement for this is received at the sender side. Then again sender sends the next data, next acknowledgement. So this process has been repeated again and again. This is the first packet, first data packet. So this is the data packet and this is the acknowledgement for this data packet. Okay, and after acknowledgement, after receiving the acknowledgement, it again sends the next data packet, and then it against this got the acknowledgement for this data packet. Now this process is going again and again, over and over again. So this is the smooth procedure by which sender and receiver can communicate with each other. Okay, but this is it looks very simple, but this is not as simple as that. There is some amount of problem associated. So the problem due to, there is 3 problem associated with this. Okay, so now the first problem is problem of stop and wait protocol. First problem. Okay, first problem due to lost data. So problem due to lost data. That means sender, suppose there is a sender and there is a receiver. Now this is sender, this is receiver. Okay, now the sender sends the data. Now what happens after traversing some amount of time, this data packet has been dropped or data packet has been lost. Okay, now the sender waits for the acknowledgement for an infinite amount of time, and receiver waits for data for the infinite amount of time. Okay, now the sender also waiting, in this case what happens, sender also waiting, and there is receiver also waiting. Okay, and their waiting is for the infinite amount of time, because the sender sends the data until and unless is got the acknowledgement, it will not send the further amount of data. And for the case of the receiver also, as the receiver is not accepting any kind of data or receive any kind of data, it also waits for infinite amount of time. So this is the problem. Now the second problem is problem due to lost ACK. Problem due to lost acknowledgement. Okay, so problem due to lost acknowledgement. Lost acknowledgement. Now in this case, this is also sender and there is also receiver. So this is sender, this is receiver. Now what happens, sender sends the data, this is perfectly received by the receiver, and receiver also sends the acknowledgement. But what happens after traversing some amount of time, this is the data packet. Okay, and this is the acknowledgement. So after some amount of time, acknowledgement had been dropped or the lost. Okay, the acknowledgement is lost, and sender is actually waiting for the infinite amount of time. Sorry, so sender is also so here is the sender is also waiting for, sender is also wait for infinite time, infinite amount of time in this case. Okay, so this is the problem number 2 due to the lost acknowledgement. Okay, now the third problem is due to delayed acknowledgement or delayed data, delayed acknowledgement or data. Okay, now in this case what happens, this is sender, this is receiver. Now sender is sending the data packet, and this is the acknowledgement. Okay, now after timeout of the sender side, now the sender is not only waiting for the infinite amount of time. Suppose sender is sending the data and waiting for the acknowledgement. After some amount of time, timeout, this is called the timeout. So after the timeout of the sender side, so after the timeout from the sender side, a delayed acknowledgement might be wrongly considered as the acknowledgement for the other data packets. Okay, that means this is data packet 1, this is acknowledgement 1, this is data packet 2, this is acknowledgement 2. Now data packet 1 has been sent, this acknowledgement has been received, this data packet after sending this data packet. So there is a mismatch of this delayed or the delayed data or the delayed acknowledgement. So this is the third problem related to the problem due to delayed acknowledgement at the delayed data. So there is three kind of problem due to lost data. In this case, sender and receiver both have to wait the infinite amount of time. Now problem due to lost acknowledgement, that means sender has been sending the data but acknowledgement has been lost, that is sender is waiting for the infinite amount of time from the receiver to get an acknowledgement. Now the problem due to delayed or acknowledgement data, after timeout from the sender side, a delayed acknowledgement might be wrongly considered as a acknowledgement for the other data packet. So this is the three problem. This is the stop and wait protocol, and this is the three problem that has been happened in the stop and wait protocol. As the protocol is simple, the problem is also associated in this protocol. Thank you.